What's up, y'all? So this video is going to cover the midterm solutions. So if you haven't taken out your bubble sheet yet, take that out, look at your answers as we go through this, and be sure to ask me any questions next week when I come back. Alright, so let's just erase this and get to the first question. Alright, a farmer has determined that the total cost in dollars of selling a portion of his strawberries at the local farmer's market can be modeled by the function f of x equals 0.9x plus 45, where x represents the number of pounds of strawberries that he brings to the market. Which of the following statements is true? So let's first look at the correct answer, which is D. It says for each additional pound, his cost will increase by 90 cents. And if you see in the original equation, the 90 cents is represented right there. Because X is representing the amount of pounds of strawberries, but all of your money is in dollars, there it is, dollars right there, you can basically see that 90 cents would have to be 0.9 in dollar form. Choice C is going to be wrong because it says his costs increase by 45 cents for each additional pound of strawberries, but the 45 cents is just a constant term. It's just being added to the entire function, so it's really not changing because it doesn't have a variable attached to it. And then choices A and B aren't correct because it's talking about the total cost, and your total cost is not going to be just 45. 45 was your constant term. There's no way that that would be your total cost. You're paying 0.9x for every pound of strawberries. It's also not going to be the total cost of $90 because that's just a decoy answer altogether. So your answer choice is going to be choice D, and there you go. Alright, so in question 2, the correct answer is going to be A. The following equation is to be solved, and as you can see in this equation, it's asking you just what is the most appropriate first step. Well, we can also look at why the other choices are wrong, and then I think we'll get the idea. In choice B, you can't divide both sides by 10 to really solve it as the first step. It's not really helping you. You could do that, and all that would really accomplish is that the 0 right there would cancel, and then you would cancel a 0 from both the 3200 and the 240x on the other side. But that's really not going to get you anywhere helpful, so it's not really the best thing to do first. It's not the most appropriate thing to do first. Choice C isn't a good option because it's asking you to subtract 3200 from 32,000, but you really can't do that because there is a multiplication dot in between the 32,000 and the 240, and that multiplication dot will prevent you from subtracting from the 3200. And choice D is wrong because you can't exactly cancel the coefficient of 240 because you have a plus sign right there on the right hand side that is separating it from the 3200. Basically, this is a binomial. You can't cancel a term inside of a binomial unless you're doing some GCF process, but it really wouldn't help you solve this problem any faster because it is asking you again for the most appropriate first step. Alright, question 3. In terms of P and Q, what is the value of x in the equation below? And the equation is 3x plus P equals Q. The first thing you'd want to make, it's choice B, the first thing you'd want to make is a do-undo table, and you would focus your do-undo table on the letter x, because that's the value that you are trying to solve for. So if you look at the first thing happening to x, it's being multiplied by 3. And then the second thing that you're doing to x is you're adding p to it. So when you undo those operations, the first thing that you would undo is you would subtract p, and then you would divide by 3. And that's exactly what you see in answer choice B. The subtraction of p is happening right there, and then dividing by 3 is happening right there with the fraction bar. Alright, question 4. What is the point of intersection for the graphs of the equations 4x minus y equals 6 and x plus y equals 4? Well, when it's talking about the intersection, that's telling you that you can set the two equations equal to one another. That's one way you could solve this. And that method would actually be substitution, which some of you might have actually used. But the other way to do it is using elimination, and that's actually the more efficient way to solve this problem, so that's the way that I went ahead and did it. If you take the two equations and you stack them like a system, you can very easily see that the y values will eliminate when you add the two equations together. 4x and x will make a 5x, and 6 plus 4 will make 10. And then you'll divide both sides by 5, and you'll be left with x equals 2, because that's what 10 divided by 5 is. So the next thing that you would do is take that x equals 2 and plug it back into one of the equations. I would recommend using the bottom equation, which I circled in green. You have to figure out the y value. So you make x 2, and it will now say 2 plus y equals 4. So subtract 2 from both sides, and 4 minus 2 is going to be 2. So your answer for the point of intersection is the coordinate 2, 2, which is choice C. All right, question 5. Which pair of numbers represents a point that does not lie on the graph of 2x plus 3y equals 6? Another easy one. You are basically just going to plug and chug, where you're going to take all of the coordinates and just plug them in one by one to the equation and see which one works. Plug and chug to check. So choice A, you have a 3 and a 0, so when you plug in 3, it's going to say 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 3 times 0, which is 0, so you get 6 equals 6. So it checks out. It is a point on the graph because you got a true statement, 6 equals 6. And it's asking us which pair of numbers does not lie on the graph. So we're looking for the ones that will wind up being false. So when you plug in the second coordinate, 6 and negative 2, you get 12 minus 6, which equals 6, which is still true. And then for choice C, when you plug in 0 and 2, you get yet another true statement. So that means D has to be the correct answer. And when you plug in 2, 3, you get 2 times 2, which is 4, and 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 plus 9 is 13. 13 is not 6. It's choice D. There's a silly face. All right, question 6. Which graph represents the inequality x is less than 2? The first thing that you would want to remember is that when you have the inequality sign that is less than, you know your line is going to be dotted. And because we have the x variable, you know that your line is going to be vertical and it's going to be crossing the x-axis. That's just something we've gone over plenty of times. If you need a further explanation of it, come and see me. So you know your line has to be vertical and you know the line has to be dotted. So the other thing to realize is that it is greater than or less than or equal to positive 2. So you can immediately eliminate choice A because choice A is crossing through negative 2. And then, since it's supposed to be crossing the x-axis, you can eliminate choice D. So now you're just left with C and B, which has to do with the inequality sign. Oh, just had to fix a little bit right there. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's the less than sign, so that means choice C is still the correct answer. Choice D is incorrect because the shading is going above the graph. The shading is all over here. That is greater than x is less than, or that is greater than 2, and we want the shaded region to be less than 2. So this part is wrong. There you go. Okay, choice C, correct answer. There you go. All right, question 7. Geeta's mother has $15,400 to invest in equal quantities of gold and silver coins. Each gold coin costs $250 and each silver coin costs $25. How much will Geeta's mother spend on each type of coin? So the first thing to realize is that this is a systems question, and it is telling you to invest equal quantities of gold and silver. We'll call gold coins X and silver coins Y, and you're investing equal quantities of them, meaning X is going to equal Y. We did a question like this as a review before the midterm, and it's just one of those harder equations to see because you have to recognize that you are setting the variables equal to each other. The next thing to do is take the gold coins being $250 each and making that 250x. And then the silver coins would be 25y. And because that will equal a total of $15,400 that is being invested, you can create the equation 250x plus 25y equals 15,400. Now what I would do is substitute, because you have x already equal to y. You have your two variables alone, so you would want to plug one in for the other. So when you do that with the top equation, let's just make x equal y, and 250y plus 25y equals 15,400 is what you now have. Combine the like terms and you get 275y, and then divide both sides by 275, and you will get the y equals 56. But that's just the amount of silver coins. We need to figure out the cost. That's what's being asked right now, the cost. So we have to take 56 and we have to multiply it by 25 to figure out that there are $1,400 that were spent on silver coins. And since the only answer choice that has 1,400 in it is B, that has to be the answer. Question 8. The area of a trapezoid is given by that formula, where b1 and b2 are the lengths of the bases and h is the height, which equation represents b squared in terms of all the other variables. Well, this is another example of a do-undo table where you're trying to get b to the, not b squared, b sub 2. It's not b squared, it is a subscript. So b sub 2, you're trying to get that alone, and you're going to want to set up another do-undo table. So the first thing that is happening to b squared in the original equation is that it is being added by b1, and you can see that right there. Oh, there we go. The next thing is that it's being divided by 2, which you can see as the fraction bar. And then it is being multiplied by h, which is happening outside of the parentheses. When you undo this process, the first thing that you would undo is dividing by h, and then you would need to multiply by 2, and then you would subtract b1. So just look for that in the answer choices. Which one is dividing by h first? And that would wind up being choice D. You're taking the letter A. I guess that's something I didn't say at first. All of this that you are undoing is happening to the variable A, because you are getting the b squared alone. So everything else has to move to the other side of the equation. And since the variable A is already on the other side of the equation, you are making everything in the undo column happen to the variable A. So the variable A is going to first be divided by h, and then you are going to multiply it by 2, and you can write that 2 in front of it. Let's make that 2 look a little better. There we go. And then you are subtracting b1 from the entire expression. You are not subtracting b1 from just the letter A. The letter A is now in a fraction. So that means when you subtract b1, you are subtracting like b1 over 1, so that you can subtract a fraction from a fraction. But you don't need to put it over 1 because it doesn't really matter for this problem. So there's your answer, choice D. Alright, question 9. The ordered pairs listed below are points on a line. Which of the following equations best describes the line containing all 3 points? This is very simple. You just plug and chug again, and it will be choice D. So let's just look at why that is the correct answer. If you take 1, 5 and you plug it in for x, you would get 3 times 1 plus 2. But since 1 is being paired with 5, you can just replace y with 5. And 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, so it checks out. The second pair of points, 3, 11, when you plug in 3, you would get 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 2 is 11, so that checks out. And then lastly, 5, 17, when you plug in 5, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So it checks out, it is choice D. Question 10. Which of the following sets of ordered pairs represents a function? You need to remember one thing about functions. Very important thing. The same x value cannot go with 2 different y values. That's bad. So if you look at choice A, you have 1, 4 and 1, 6. The same x value, the number 1s, are being paired with two different y values, 4 and 6. So that is not a function. You can't, if the number 1 were like asking the question, what did you eat for dinner last night? And the number 4 was pasta, and the number 6 was something different. I mean, you only ate one thing for your dinner. Let's just say you had one meal. But it's not like you're going to be eating, I don't know, pasta, and then the number 6 could be like chocolate ice cream. You only ate one thing. In any case, choice B is not going to be correct because you are just going to get a picture of a vertical line. All of those coordinates start with a -3, and then they all have different y values. So basically, when you plot all of those coordinates, you're going to be getting a vertical line. -3, -3 would be all the way down there, and -3, -1 would be right there, and -3, +1, and -3, +3, so on and so forth. You get a vertical line. And because you have a vertical line, you don't have a slope. The slope does not exist. So because the slope does not exist, this is not a function. Vertical lines do not represent functions. You are having multiple different y values being paired with the same x value. That's like answering the same question with multiple different answers. That's like telling a lie. You can have two different answers to the same question, but you can't have multiple answers or you can't have different y values when you have the same x value. Choice D, the same thing as choice A. You have 2 being paired with 4 and 2 being paired with 0, and then 2 going with -4. The same x value is going to 2 different y values. So choice C is good because all of those coordinates are unique. All of the x-y pairs are going with different, x and y values. You don't see the same x value being paired with 2 different y values. All the x values are different. They're all unique. Question 11, a sequence is shown below, 0, 1, 0, 1, back and forth, and which of the following statements best explains whether or not the sequence represents a function? This was a very challenging question, so if you got it correct, good job. If not, listen carefully because I'm really trying to explain it clearly so that you get it. Choice A is wrong because it says the sequence does not represent a function because the terms alternate indefinitely. That doesn't mean it's not a function. It just means the sequence is alternating. That does not mean it is indicating it's not a function. Choice B is wrong because the terms of the sequence, it says they are zeros of the function f of x equals x squared. That's just not true. That's kind of one of those decoy answers. We haven't really talked about that idea, and I hope no one really leaned towards picking that one because it looked strange. It's just one of those answers where you don't know the full material yet, but they are not the zeros of the function f of x equals x squared. So choice C is not going to be correct because your terms 0, 1, 0, 1, these are actually y values. What you're reading in a sequence is an output, and the y values are your output values. X is your input, y is your output. So it's, y values in general, they can be the same as long as your x values are different. I mean, the previous problems were just talking about, what's a function, what's not a function. So it's bad if you have the same x value going with 2 different y values, but it's okay if different x values go with the same y values. So your x values are actually going to be the positions of those terms. The 0 is in the first position. The first 1 is in the second position. The second 0 is in the third position. These are just positions, and all of these positions are your x values, your inputs. So because all of these x values are unique, they're all different, it's okay that a few of them are going with the same y values. That's okay, because all of the x values are different. Each position of the sequence is occupied by a single term. Each position. So not an easy question at all. If you got it, good job. If not, try to learn from this and hopefully you'll get it next time. Yeah, a lot of people missed this one. All right, question 12. Movie Galore video stores open every day of the year. To rent movies from the store, a person has to pay an annual membership fee. To reduce the chance that movies are returned late, members are not allowed to rent more than 10 movies per day. Billy decides to become a member of the video store. Let X represent the number of movies that Billy could rent next year, and let f of X represent the amount that he would pay in the store, pay the store as a result. Wow, there's a lot going on here, so let's just kind of go through it piece by piece, and I think you'll see how easy the answer actually does get revealed. First thing to realize is that he's paying $2.50 for each movie rented, and then he has an annual membership fee of $20. That would be like the equation 20 plus 2.50 M. That's just at least understanding how much money is being spent on all of these movies. Now, what's interesting about this problem is that it gives you a little curveball saying that members are not allowed to rent more than 10 movies per day. So that means there's a maximum of 10 movies per day that could be rented. And it's very important to getting the final answer. Oh yeah, it's using X. X is your input variable. Okay, so since X represents the amount of movies that Billy could rent next year, and f of X is going to be the amount that he would spend, the f of X is going to represent your Y values, and if you look at where it says domain and range, we're talking about X and Y. That's what domain means, X and Y values. The thing about all of these answer choices is that they are written with using interval notation, something that I don't think we've really talked about more than once. The main thing you need to understand about interval notation is that you have an upper and lower boundary line. That's kind of what it's defining. What is the maximum amount of money that Billy could spend? What is the minimum amount of money that he will spend? What is the maximum number of movies that he could rent? What is the minimum number of movies that he could rent? So, because it says that X represents the number of movies that Billy could rent next year, well, since there are 365 days in a year, and since he could rent 10 movies per day, which is an insane amount when you think about it, 365 times 10 is 3,650. So if you look at choices A and D, the domain part, the X value, the input, it starts at 0 and it ends at 365. But he could rent 3,650 movies in 1 year. And the domain is talking about all of the X values that would represent what he is renting per year, the amount of movies he's renting per year. The other way you could look at this problem is try to figure out the cost. Basically, if the membership fee is $20, no matter what, and each movie is $2.50 to rent, you just take $2.50 and you multiply that by 3,650, and you'll wind up getting 9,145. Oh, but you would also have to add the 20 from the membership fee as well. So I guess basically in choice B, the range has a 0, implying that you could spend no money. But that's not true. You have an annual membership fee of $20. So no matter what, you're going to have to spend $20, even if you don't rent any movies. So that's why it's choice C. Again, not the easiest question, but when you think about it, you can kind of piece it together, and hopefully you can at least learn from it. All right, question 13. What is the slope of the line represented by that equation? Basically, when you were looking for the slope, you could very easily write it in slope-intercept form. And to do that, you want to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So all you really need to do is just take your equation and divide both sides by 5. The 5 will cancel. The 10 will become a 2. But your fraction in the middle, 2 over 5, well, that will represent your slope. 2/5 x plus 2. All we care about is the 2/5 because that's the slope. So it's choice A. Cynthia graphed the following linear function on the coordinate plane. What is the x-intercept of the graph of this function? Basically, when you're looking for the x-intercept, you want to make the y value 0. That's what you need to know. That's been taught. It's been explained many times. When you find the x-intercept, the y value is going to be 0. So plug in 0 for y, and you get negative 8x minus 5. Add 5 to both sides. And then you will divide both sides by negative 8. And when you cancel out your -8s, you will be left with your X-Intercept, 5 over -8, which is choice D. Alright, so in question 15, it says 3 functions are represented below. Which function has the graph with a positive y-intercept? So you need to remember that if you are looking for a positive y-intercept, that means your x value is still going to be 0. So if you look at function 1, it says 0, negative 1.5. That is your y-intercept. It's negative, so it can't be function 1. Function 2, if you make x 0 and you plug it in, 4 times 0 is 0, and then if you divide both sides by -3, remember a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So -8 divided by -3 is negative, or positive 8/3. That's positive, so that means it's a positive y-intercept. 0, 8/3. And in function 3, if you look at the y-axis, the line crosses the y-axis at a positive 2. So that means the y-intercept is again positive. So choice C, 2 and 3 only. Alright, so second to last question. Divya filled 2 right cylindrical buckets with water at 1 at a time. The graph below shows the water levels as a function of the number of seconds, which the following could explain why the function for the second bucket differs from the function for the first. If you just notice, the lines are both heading in the same direction, so they have the same slope. And the dotted line just has a higher y-intercept. So basically, though, let's just go through the problem. The number of seconds is going to be represented by t, and then the water level will be h of t. And since it's asking you for how do they differ, just notice the y-intercept is higher on bucket 2. It's higher up. So choice A can't be correct because it says bucket 2 was shorter than bucket 1. Choice B can't be correct because it's talking about the rates. That's referring to their slopes. And the slopes are the same, which also means the slopes are parallel. The lines are parallel. So that means they are increasing at the same rate. So since it can't be A, B, or C, it has to be D. And the water level of bucket 2 is higher than the first bucket. Alright, last question. Cell phone company has 2 plans. Plan A charges $11 per month and 21 cents per minute, and Plan B $20 per month and 10 cents per minute. You're trying to figure out when will the cost be the same. So the first thing that you'd want to do is set up your 2 equations that represent both of the cell phone plans. So there's your first equation, 11 plus 0.21 m, and then the second equation, 20 plus 0.10 m. You're trying to figure out when the plans will be equal, so that means you're trying to figure out when the costs will be the same. So if you just plug in your equations for the letter C, you will set them equal to each other just like this. You'll notice right here that there is a blank spot where the 1 should have been drawn from right there, but I had to erase it and edit the video, so I'm just going to play the rest of the problem working out, and then the 1 will fill back in. Subtract 11 from both sides, subtract 10m from both sides, 20 minus 11 becomes 9, and then there you go, the 0.21 minus 10 becomes 0.11. And then when you divide both sides by 0.11, 9 divided by 0.11 is going to leave you with 81.81 bar minutes. Problem is, look at all your answer choices. 2 of them are in hours, and then 2 of them are in, or better yet, 2 of them say 1 hour, and then 2 of them say 81 hours. I hope you realize that those are both decoys immediately. In any case, 81 minutes, remember that's what M is referring to, minutes. 81 minutes, if you subtract 60 minutes from it, that's 1 hour, leaving you with 21 additional minutes. So you are currently at 1 hour and 21 minutes. The thing is, though, you have to realize that your decimal does matter. 0.81 bar. That is referring to 0.81 minutes. 0.81 minutes is very, very close to 1 minute. And if you are going to have an additional minute, since you would round it up, it does say to the nearest minute, then you would round 0.81 up to 1 minute, and then you would add that to 21, giving you 22. So your answer would be 1 hour and 22 minutes. And that's it. Alright guys, so I hope this helped. If you need to go back and look at any of the questions, by all means do that, and definitely ask me next week if you need me to clarify anything for you. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next week.